Remember when a Harley meant something? When it wasn't just chrome, it was a badge of freedom? That dream is dying. Sales are tanking, riders are leaving, and the next generation? They're not buying in. This isn't a comeback story, it's a warning. Because if Harley doesn't act now, America's most iconic motorcycle brand could vanish for good. From icon to crisis. There was a time when seeing a Harley Davidson on the road meant something. It wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a badge of honor, a rolling symbol of American grit and rebellion. But in 2024, that symbol is rusting. The latest earnings report didn't just reveal a slowdown, it exposed a crisis. Sales across the globe have nosedived, with North America, once Harley's stronghold, becoming ground zero for its unraveling. The dealerships that once buzzed with excitement are now graveyards of unsold inventory, packed with chrome machines collecting dust instead of miles. And overseas? The story is just as grim. In markets like India, China, and across Southeast Asia, regions that Harley once saw as lifelines for growth, the numbers are collapsing. Once optimistic international expansions have become costly burdens. Consumer interest has evaporated, and so have dealer partnerships. Harley's bold global strategy is now backfiring hard, and there's no cavalry on the horizon. Meanwhile, inside the company, panic is setting in. Production costs are spiraling, especially with raw material volatility and logistics chaos. Margins have thinned to dangerous levels. Every new bike built is a gamble. Will it sell? Will it sit? No one knows. But the longer they sit, the worse it gets. Financing costs rise. Dealer confidence plummets. And the floor plans, those financial arrangements that allow dealerships to stock bikes, become liabilities, not lifelines. Harley Davidson isn't just having a rough year. It's bleeding cash, losing ground, and staggering under the weight of its own legacy. What we're watching now isn't a temporary dip. It's a systemic failure. The engine isn't sputtering, it's seizing. But the financial collapse was just the beginning of Harley's downfall. The dealership trap that killed the sale. Buying a Harley Davidson should feel like a momentous experience. But for too many riders, it now feels like a trap. Hidden fees, predatory markups, forced accessories. It's not just frustrating, it's insulting. Dealerships that once stood as temples of rider culture are now operating like luxury car lots without the customer service to back it up. Let's talk numbers. A bike listed at $25,000 might walk out the door at over $32,000 after dealer fees, freight charges, prep cost, and often mandatory upgrades like paint protection or service plans. And unlike competing brands, Honda, Yamaha, even Indian, Harley dealers are notorious for refusing to negotiate. They rely on legacy loyalty. They assume you'll pay because it's Harley, but that assumption is breaking down. Riders are waking up, they're comparing, and they're walking away. One would-be buyer recently walked into a dealership prepared to finance a new bagger. The listed price was $26,000. The final offer? $33,000. Non-negotiable. He walked. He bought a Honda Gold Wing instead. That story isn't an exception anymore. It's a pattern. Harley's dealerships have become one of the brand's biggest liabilities, not because they lack bikes, but because they lack transparency, flexibility, and respect for the modern buyer. But what Harley didn't realize was that price wasn't their only blind spot. It was pride. Culture war on two wheels. Harley Davidson doesn't just build motorcycles, it builds identity. Or at least it used to. For decades, the Harley image was rebellious, masculine, exclusive, and proudly so. But that image hasn't aged well. To younger riders, millennials, Gen Z, it feels more like a costume than a culture. The leather vest, the poker runs, the rigid biker codes, these aren't selling points anymore. They're barriers. Harley-centric clubs and events often feel like closed circles. Harley-only rides still dominate local calendars. And for riders who just want to ride without subscribing to a lifestyle, it's alienating. Contrast that with modern movements. The Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, women-led moto communities, adventure riding groups that welcome everything from scooters to dirt bikes. These spaces thrive because they're open. They're about riding, not branding. And Harley? It missed the memo. The company doubled down on exclusivity just as the world opened up. Its advertising still glorifies the same rugged imagery it used in the 1980s: beards, leather, noise, dominance. But today's riders want versatility, personalization, and community, not conformity. Harley still throws a party, but it forgot to invite the new generation. And while Harley clung to its past, a wave of riders was building a future without them. If you care about what's happening to Harley and to the riders who built this culture, subscribe. We're riding this out together. Yesterday's bikes are today's biggest enemy. In the world of motorcycles, used bikes have always played a role in shaping the market. But for Harley Davidson, that role has become existential. The company's own past success is now eating into its present. Across the United States, the used market is flooded with 5, 10, even 15-year-old Harleys that have been babied, stored in garages, and upgraded to perfection, all at a fraction of the cost of a new model. It started with the baby boomer generation. They were Harley's backbone for decades, but now many are aging out of riding. Some are retiring, others are downsizing, many are simply stepping away. Their well-maintained bikes, low miles, loaded with aftermarket gear, are now flooding resale platforms, auction houses, and local dealers. And when today's buyer compares a 5-year-old Road Glide with premium upgrades at $15,000 to a new model at $35,000, the math is easy. Harley Davidson's core design philosophy hasn't changed much over the past 2 decades. The silhouette is the same. The tech is barely updated. The feel? Nearly identical. That means a used Harley doesn't feel old. It feels familiar. And that familiarity has become Harley's biggest enemy. Why buy new when the difference is mostly cosmetic? Harley's biggest rival isn't Indian or Honda or BMW. It's the Harley in your neighbor's garage. And the real reason new models aren't selling? They're not even new. Stuck in 1985. Harley's tech crisis. Take one look at a Harley's spec sheet and compare it to a modern competitor. The gap is stunning. Harley Davidson is still banking on air-cooled engines, analog gauges, and the idea that sound and style will overcome the lack of substance. But the 21st century rider expects more, and they're getting it elsewhere. Indian's Challenger, BMW's K-Series, Honda's Goldwing, even Yamaha's Baggers, they all offer rider assist features, digital connectivity, customizable ride modes, and liquid cooling. Meanwhile, Harley's flagship touring models often come without standard blind spot detection, no lean-sensitive ABS, and little to no electronic adaptability. These aren't just luxury features anymore. They're baseline expectations. Harley's refusal to update its platform architecture is part tradition, part stubbornness, and part fear. The brand has convinced itself that change equals alienation. But that logic has backfired. Riders aren't nostalgic. They're frustrated. They're paying top dollar for machines that feel stuck in time. When a $40,000 motorcycle lacks features found in a $22,000 Honda, the premium feels like punishment. Side-by-side comparisons tell the story. Indian offers more for less. BMW offers sophistication. Yamaha offers smoothness. Harley offers history, and not much else. And when they did try to innovate, they proved just how lost they were. Innovation without vision. Harley Davidson had its chance. 2 of them, in fact. The first came with the LiveWire, a bold leap into electric motorcycling, launched with high hopes and even higher expectations. But Harley priced it at nearly $30,000. That's not a futuristic breakthrough. That's a niche luxury toy. The very riders Harley hoped to attract, young, eco-conscious, tech-savvy, couldn't afford it. And the riders who could afford it, they didn't want it. Sales were so poor that Harley quietly spun off LiveWire into its own brand, distancing itself from the embarrassment. What could have been a moment of reinvention became a cautionary tale. Instead of seizing the future, Harley abandoned it. Then came the Pan America. This was different. A capable adventure bike with real power, solid tech, and surprisingly good reviews. It brought new riders into showrooms. It sparked curiosity. But Harley didn't capitalize. They didn't evolve the platform, didn't expand the lineup, and didn't brand it with long-term vision. Like so many things Harley does, it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Even the Revolution Max engine, which underpins the Pan America and a few other models, sits unused in most of Harley's mainline bikes. They created something new, then buried it under fear of alienating their base. Harley dipped a toe into the future, then recoiled in fear. And just when Harley needed a win, another crisis hit hard. The economy that crushed a legend. The chrome dream used to mean something. For decades, Harley Davidson wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a financial stretch that riders were proud to make. It was worth the overtime hours, the side hustles, the scraped-together savings. Because once you threw a leg over that V-twin, you weren't just escaping traffic, you were escaping gravity. But in 2024, that dream isn't just harder to reach. For many, it's completely out of reach. The economy has turned against Harley, and against every rider trying to stay afloat. Disposable income across the United States is down. Wages have stagnated while inflation quietly eats through paychecks like rust through chrome. Rent, groceries, and insurance are rising, and for the average working American, a $30,000 bike is no longer a reward. It's a liability. Worse yet, the interest rate landscape has changed dramatically. A few years ago, financing a Harley over 5 years might have meant $200 per month, give or take. But now, with interest rates spiking across auto and recreational loans, that same loan balloons past $400, and that's before taxes, insurance, or service plans. The idea of cruising into a Harley dealership and leaving with a payment that fits your lifestyle? That's gone. The new Harley pitch sounds more like a luxury car lease than a freedom machine. Dealerships are feeling the pressure too. They're watching buyers come in, crunch the numbers, and walk right back out. Riders who once would have financed a Road Glide are now looking at Honda Rebels or Kawasaki Vulcans. Riders who once dreamed of a Softail are now watching YouTube videos on used Suzuki boulevards. In this economy, practicality isn't a preference, it's a necessity. And this isn't just happening in the United States. In the United Kingdom, Germany, and Australia, rising costs of living are choking middle-class riders. In Southeast Asia and Latin America, Harley's high-dollar offerings are simply incompatible with regional economies. And in Canada, even the most devoted Harley fans are downsizing to more fuel-efficient, budget-friendly machines as economic conditions tighten. Harley has not responded with price drops or rider-friendly finance plans. Instead, their premium pricing strategy persists, even as the world beneath them crumbles. Harley is selling motorcycles like it's 2014, but riders are buying like it's 2024. The result is a brand that feels tone-deaf, detached, out of sync with the very people it once championed. The freedom Harley once symbolized now feels like financial entrapment. And that iconic sound of a Harley engine? For many, it's been replaced by the quieter hum of a more affordable, less burdensome choice. The truth is simple. The chrome dream costs more than the rent. But even as wallets closed, something else was opening. The door to a new generation of rivals. The global invasion Harley never saw coming. For most of the 20th century, Harley Davidson was America's loudest export. Wherever freedom needed a flag, Harley showed up first, with chrome, muscle, and thunder. But as Harley clung to its legacy, the rest of the world started writing a new future. And now, that rumble is being drowned out, not by noise, but by precision. Across Europe, Asia, and South America, Harley Davidson is quietly losing its global strongholds. And in their place, international juggernauts are setting up shop with smarter strategies, more accessible pricing, and motorcycles that meet modern needs. Not mid-century fantasies. BMW is the most brutal proof. In Germany and across Europe, BMW Motorrad has transformed the luxury touring market into a masterclass in engineering. Adaptive suspension, radar-based cruise control, liquid-cooled boxer engines, seamless connectivity, and state-of-the-art rider aids have turned bikes like the R1250 RT into legends of the Autobahn. These machines are smoother, faster, safer, and priced with brutal efficiency. Harley's old-world air-cooled platforms don't just look outdated next to a BMW, they feel ancient. Meanwhile, Honda quietly dominates the global reliability war. Their Goldwing redefined touring motorcycles with 6-cylinder precision, dual-clutch transmissions, and whisper-quiet refinement. But it's not just about touring. Honda's smaller displacement cruisers, like the Rebel 500, sell by the tens of thousands around the world, offering younger and budget-conscious riders a premium experience at a fraction of Harley's cost. And then there's Royal Enfield, the comeback Harley never saw coming. Once mocked for being underpowered and outdated, Royal Enfield now commands serious market share in India, Southeast Asia, and even Europe. The Meteor, the Classic 350, and the Interceptor 650 are light, reliable, charmingly retro, and most importantly, affordable. They're priced where Harley used to be, in reach. In Latin America and Africa, Harley's market presence has nearly vanished. In the Philippines, Malaysia, and Thailand, local brands and Japanese manufacturers have seized entire segments. Harley's inability to localize its pricing or build strategic global alliances has left them walled off from the next generation of international riders. The worst part? This global shift wasn't a sudden ambush. It was a slow-motion collapse. Harley had time to adjust, time to partner, time to innovate for emerging markets. But instead of building bridges, they built borders. Instead of adapting, they dug in. And now, those borders are being erased by competitors who are faster, smarter, and less burdened by legacy. But Harley wasn't just losing roads, it was losing riders. Riders who left and aren't coming back. Some departures happen quietly. A missed ride, a garage sale, a Facebook marketplace listing. Other departures are louder. Heated arguments in dealership lobbies, angry Reddit threads, YouTube rants. But however they leave, one thing is clear. Harley riders are leaving, and they're not coming back. These aren't newcomers. These are men and women who spent decades flying the bar and shield, riders who rode across states, showed up to rallies, and bought into the myth Harley sold them. They weren't just customers, they were disciples. But now, they're disillusioned and in many cases disgusted. What changed? For some, it was the dealership betrayal. Riders who walked in for an $18,000 bike and left staring at a $32,000 invoice. Others were tired of the same tech promises year after year, promises that never materialized. For many, the tipping point was emotional. Harley's image started to feel less like family and more like a costume. A brand that once symbolized authenticity now feels like an overpriced fashion statement. Testimonies pour in daily. A rider from Arizona trades in his Street Glide for an Indian Challenger and posts, "I didn't leave Harley, Harley left me." A 30-something woman from Ohio test rides a BMW R9T and realizes for the first time what a bike should actually feel like. A father and son walk out of a Harley showroom and into a Yamaha dealership after a hard sell left them questioning the company they once idolized. The feeling is always the same. They thought they were Harley for life. Now they're riding into the future without it. The emotional fallout is brutal. Forums once filled with ride plans and road trip photos are now filled with goodbyes. Videos titled "Why I Left Harley Davidson After 20 Years" rack up hundreds of thousands of views. These are not brand haters. These are brand survivors, speaking out because they feel abandoned by the machine they once loved. And if this all feels familiar, it's because it already happened once before. History repeats. Harley has been here before. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the company was gasping for air. Japanese manufacturers like Honda and Kawasaki were flooding the American market with better-engineered, cheaper motorcycles. Harley's quality control was in the gutter, its technology behind by decades, and its sales plummeting. Back then, Harley was rescued by tariffs, patriotism, and a generation of riders nostalgic for the good old days. The Reagan administration slapped a massive import tariff on foreign motorcycles above 700 cubic centimeters. That gave Harley breathing room. Meanwhile, the company rebranded itself as America's last true motorcycle maker and capitalized on that image with ruthless precision. But 2024 is not 1984. There are no tariffs coming. No Reagan-era policy shifts, no unifying patriotism waiting to be tapped. Today's buyers want value, performance, and smart financing, not stars and stripes. Back then, the enemy was external, Japan. Today, the threat is internal, Harley's refusal to evolve. It's not Yamaha or Honda killing Harley Davidson, it's Harley Davidson's inability to change. The world has moved on. The brand stayed the same. And the truth is brutal. You only get to come back from the edge once. But is Harley truly out of moves? Is the end inevitable? Or could there still be one final move that changes everything? But is there still one move left on Harley's board? Can Harley still be saved? For all the doom and gloom, the truth is this: Harley Davidson is not dead yet. Yes, the company is in free fall. Yes, they are hemorrhaging market share, relevance, and cultural clout. But history has shown that iconic brands can claw their way back from the edge if they make the hard decisions and move fast. The window is shrinking, but it's not shut. First, Harley must fix its pricing, not just adjust it, rebuild it. Entry-level Harleys must come down from the clouds and hit the pavement where real riders live. A base model needs to be under $10,000. Not after incentives, not after negotiating, from the start. That means stripping unnecessary dealership markups, eliminating forced add-ons, and offering factory-standard bikes that riders can actually afford. Because a motorcycle that's aspirational and unattainable is just a museum piece. Second, Harley must commit fully to modern engines. The Revolution Max platform is a great start, but it cannot be limited to a few niche models. Air-cooled engines may be nostalgic, but they're dragging Harley down. Emission standards, heat issues, and outdated tech make them a liability. Harley needs to embrace liquid cooling across the lineup and stop apologizing for it. Riders want performance. Deliver it. Third, Harley must clean house at the dealership level. The buying experience is broken. Hidden fees, shady pricing, high-pressure tactics, these are not relics of the past. They're current policy. Harley must enforce pricing transparency, rein in predatory dealers, and return control to the brand. The dealership should be a gateway to community, not a gauntlet of financial punishment. Fourth, and maybe most important, Harley must rewrite its story. The outlaw branding, the leather-only aesthetic, the idea that you're only a rider if you look like you stepped out of 1989, it has to go. Harley must become a brand that welcomes everyone. Commuters, women, new riders, city dwellers, young professionals. This isn't about selling out, it's about surviving. When your average buyer is in their late 50s, you're not building a future, you're retiring. This also means marketing needs a full reboot. Show diverse riders. Emphasize features and value. Highlight reliability, innovation, and flexibility. Partner with influencers, urban riders, and adventure communities. Stop preaching and start listening. The next generation doesn't want a sermon, they want a solution. And it's not just about saving Harley, it's about saving American motorcycling itself. Because like it or not, Harley is still the symbol of it all. If they fall, it sends a signal, a loud one, that America stopped caring about building bikes for its own people. So can Harley still be saved? Absolutely. But only if they treat this moment not as a crisis, but as a reckoning. Because if they don't change everything, everything will change without them. What happens if Harley dies? What happens if Harley Davidson disappears? Not just a shutdown or a buyout, but a true death of the brand. What does that do to American motorcycling culture? The answer is simple. Everything changes. For over 100 years, Harley wasn't just a motorcycle company, it was a movement, a rolling anthem. It shaped everything from fashion to film, from politics to pop culture. You didn't even have to ride to know what Harley stood for. Freedom, rebellion, blue-collar grit. The hum of a V-twin was as American as the stars and stripes, but if Harley dies, that sound fades. Sturgis shrinks, the clubs fracture, the dealerships close, the Harley-only events vanish. The road loses a piece of its mythology. That doesn't mean riders will stop riding, but it does mean something elemental goes missing. The Brotherhood loses its flagship. American muscle loses its symbol. and the touring lifestyle becomes just another global category, dominated by BMW tech, Honda reliability, and Indians' smarter spin on nostalgia. And here's the irony. Harley's refusal to modernize might turn America's most iconic motorcycle brand into a footnote in its own story. More than that, a Harley collapse creates a ripple effect in the industry. Fewer dealerships, fewer mechanics, fewer accessory brands, whole towns that built their identity around Harley events or factories. They feel the aftershock, and riders, especially older ones, find themselves adrift. Because for them, Harley wasn't just a purchase, it was a promise. The culture doesn't collapse overnight, but it does erode. And as it fades, new cultures rise to replace it. Urban e-bike scenes, electric touring groups, international moto communities where branding is less important than utility. Harley's death won't be a boom. It'll be a slow, quiet fade, a ghost on the highway, a legend everyone remembers, but no one follows. But it's not just the past that's at stake, it's the riders still to come. The final ride, America after Harley. This is the final chapter, not just of the script, but of a legacy that's been in motion for more than 120 years. Harley Davidson may still be here on paper, but the question is, what does it mean to be Harley if the myth is gone? Because Harley wasn't just a company. It was a story, a ritual, a rite of passage. It was the bike you bought when you made it, when you said, "This is who I am." But now, for the first time in modern memory, that sentence doesn't end with Harley. It ends with Indian, or Honda, or Triumph, or nothing at all. And maybe that's the natural order. Maybe myths are meant to fade. Maybe they're not supposed to survive the digital age. Maybe the road has already chosen its new voices. But here's what won't fade: the hunger to ride, the thrill of throttle, the need to go. Those are eternal. And long after the bar and shield vanishes from showroom windows, there will still be riders out there chasing sunrises and skipping sleep for open highways. The final ride isn't Harley's, it's ours. And someone, some brand, some rider, some rebel with a new idea will take that torch and run. This isn't just the end of a company, it could be the end of an era. Harley's future is on the line, and it's not guaranteed. What do you think? Can they turn it around, or is this the final ride? Drop your thoughts in the comments.